Hi guys, Thogrey here with a new video, and this video will be a tier list video where we are ranking all the expansions for PvP, and we are talking about PvP only, but we are talking about RBGs, BGs, arenas, open world PvP, just the PvP feel of an expansion. Like, is it fun to PvP on that expansion or is it not? So let's talk right away. We are on the tier list maker side, of course, known to be a very good site, and we have S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and D tier. S tier means it is the best of the best, A tier means it is good, B tier it means it is average, C tier means it is like underperforming, like left to be desired, and D tier means it is trash. So it is going to be very controversial, but let's start right away with I'm gonna start like expansion per expansion. So we're going for vanilla, TPC, WOTLK. I'm going to do it chronological. I'm going to say that really vanilla WoW was an average to A tier expansion to PvP on. Let me explain. To be honest, the open world PvP feel of that game was unrivaled. If you're playing on a PvP server back in the day, it was not like meta and only meta, so it means that people are not min-maxing their factions, so it means that it is pretty balanced. I knew whenever I played on my French server back in the day, it was quite balanced on Archimond. Like, it was really fun to play every time you are like walking into open for leveling or going to BRD or whatever. You always had some PvP action. So for that very thing, I'm going to put it in B tier, but it is probably only nostalgia because BGs were fun. But the gearing system was very bad because again it was rewarding people that had more time and not more skilled. You had to raid a lot for getting the best gear. Like mages could like root all the time for versus warrior, so a warrior could not really win versus mage. Like vanilla WoW is pretty much like rock paper scissor gameplay. Like X class is winning versus Y class, but Z class is winning versus X class, and the tail goes on and on. So vanilla WoW average because probably like nostalgia and also all those PvP montage videos from Swifty, for example. It was a very good time to be a WoW player. I feel like WoW Classic was very good until like I think phase 2, phase 3, towards the end, like people just went away from servers because they didn't really want to get farmed by X faction, for example, and then the imbalance began, and then at that very moment, it was like very bad to actually PvP on a server, for example. But I always liked phase 1 whenever we were PvPing, and in Strangletorn, for example, we were doing like 40 versus 40s, from level 30 to level 40, for example. It was like godlike PvP. So I really like that expansion. So let's talk about TBC now. I feel like TBC gets arenas, gets the start of what we know PvP is. So it's arenas, PGs to farm like honor gear, then you get like conk gear or arena gear, for example, in TBC, and then you can also progress in raids to actually get better gear or better assets to your gear. You have different comps, different works. CCs don't really have like an infinite duration, DRing, etc. So TBC just put the stones for a good PvP expansion. For me, it stays average because, to be honest, in trees, it is pretty much like you are fighting versus specific comps, and that makes it very bad. I'm talking like at the moment TBC Classic. Also, you don't really have personal rating again, so it's also making it a bit difficult to actually PvP with strangers, so you had to recreate a team, for example. So the barrier of entry in PvP was still very high. You could not do arena with strangers. You had really to find people that want to create a team with you and then stick with that team to try to progress. But of course, you had boosters in Classic. In like back in the day, there weren't like that many boosters, but now you have boosters that actually try to give those weapons to the people that want to grind some arena gear, of course. So it is an average expansion. I feel like rogues too strong, mages it's alright. It is also very strong. Warlocks too strong. Resto druid too strong. So I feel like it gets fixed with the next expansion, which is Wrath of the Lich King. Wrath of the Lich King is an S tier like arena BG PvP expansion. I'm going to explain why. First and foremost, I did play private servers too, and I think a lot of people know arena tournament private servers. So those servers were made with, of course, you had 80 templates. You could create your character, get your starter gear, and then go into arenas, go into BGs, and it was very popular back in the day, and now it became war main. But Wrath of the Lich King starts to actually feel where every class and every spec has a viable comp. For example, if you're playing balanced druids, you can play with a fire mage and it becomes a viable threes comp. In twos too, I feel like there is a bit of okay, you have warrior with a holy priest, which is pretty much like meta god tier, but I feel like threes has been very good like season to season. Of course, whenever Shadowborn will come out, uh, that will probably make the meta a bit more broken. But I feel like still you can have all your gear in PvP. You can get some assets to for into raids because everyone is talking about PvE. You have to PvE. You have to PvE in Wrath of the Lich King, which is not really the case. It is really for the top players. You will not see everyone with Shadowborn because it is really a tedious quest to do, especially in classic. I still think that you can get away with a full PvP gear. Of course, if you're going to min-max, you can go into raids, but that's also a fun activity. It's like expanding the activities. Same for PvEers. They want to go to PvP to get specific gear, for example, and that is going to expand a lot of activities for a lot of players. So I feel like Wrath of the Lich King is the like footnote of a great start for World of Warcraft. It is also the moment where there were a lot of Wrath babies, so a lot of people that are actually starting with Wrath of the Lich King, and I feel like it is the pinnacle of what WoW was for PvP at least. Now we're talking about Cataclysm, and I feel like Cataclysm is a great PvP expansion again. I still feel like the classes were dumbed down a bit more since Wrath because they added things and they removed power from others, and I feel like it was the start of the pruning effect that they had for like current WoW, for example. They pruned the talents, so you didn't really get new talents, but you got like less choice. Um, I feel like it was not the best talent iteration, and it was very fun to PvP, but I did also PvP a lot less on that expansion because I didn't really like Cataclysm that much. I feel like it's because of the raids probably. Um, was it my fault or was it my sentiment? I don't know. But I also played a lot of League of Legends back in the day at that time, so maybe it was also like a part where I was going to League of Legends for a few years and Cataclysm like came and I didn't really want to go back to 100% World of Warcraft, so maybe that's why. But I do remain with a good sentiment for Cataclysm, at least for PvP, so I put it in A tier. It was a good PvP expansion. It was also the rise of a few YouTubers, like for example Bajira. Soda Poppin was like starting to grow, and I feel like it was also a great expansion to see like Wreckful and such. So Cataclysm was really a good expansion for PvP. I just think it's not as good as Wrath of the Lich King. Mist of Pandaria. I feel like everyone will put it in S tier. It is the best PvP expansion with Wrath of the Lich King. I don't know if it's more or less, but at least it is really in the top two. I would say it's top one for me. It is the moment where every class had some OP thing tied to him. Like for example, druids had symbiosis, so they could basically ice block, for example. You had warlocks that did like insane damage, also insane sustain. I remember with the embers. I think the destruction warlocks had embers, so they could heal themselves with those embers. It was really a good time to be like main PvPer because you had all the gear at disposal for PvP. Really, you didn't have to raid at all. The expansion felt like every class was OP, so it meant that nothing is OP basically. And yeah, it was really the pinnacle. I feel like a lot of people can remember of those dampening games, of those OP things that could happen in Mist of Pandaria. But let's remember that Mist of Pandaria has that, but all the expansions has that too. TBC, dampening games exist. Wrath of the Lich King, dampening games exist. Cataclysm, the same. And it just became a bit less apparent because you had like real dampening, which is listening the healing that you can make in an arena. It was implemented later, and that made it a bit harder to actually, I don't know, sustain like long fights, for example. But Mist of Pandaria still had an OP shit, and I really liked that expansion. Um, yeah, I felt like Mist of Pandaria, they should take Wrath of the Lich King, Mist of Pandaria, fusion it, and it must become Dragonflight. I feel like with the current direction of Dragonflight, it might be the best expansion since a long while. So let's discuss about Walls of Draenor. So that was Ashran. That was like also a lot of BGs, a lot of arenas. You still had vendors, which is still very good, and there was a lot of pruning. So since there is a lot of pruning, you don't have a lot of tools, but I felt like PvP was kind of balanced. I must say that I did like PvPing in Walls of Draenor because I really liked Ashran. I feel like they should have done that a lot better. They just dropped the ball. Once Walls of Draenor was done, they just didn't do anything with Ashran, and that made it, to be honest, like again a system that just comes and goes. While, for example, previous expansions like Mist of Pandaria, Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, TBC, Vanilla, there were no real systems and everything was built on. And Walls of Draenor was the first expansion where they are actually removing things that they have actually introduced into the game. So for me, PvP wise, it is a A tier. But if I must be honest, I feel like it is really a C or D tier expansion overall. But PvP wise, I feel like I had a lot of fun. I also made my first PvP montage video, but because of monetization and because of copyright, I can't really post it on this channel, but it was like my first level 100 Retribution Paladin montage video. It was really fun to make, and I have a bit of nostalgia from that time, but I still think Mist of Pandaria, Wrath, and Cataclysm are above. The reason why it is A tier, not B tier, because I feel like TBC is still not on par with PvP, like arenas from back, like from recent expansions, I would say. Legion. Now we are coming to a conclusion where, for me, the type that they went for, like templates, isn't made for World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft was always a theory crafting game, always testing X, Y, Z and see what fits for you, and templates made that actually nothing really fits. I also remember a lot of Rextro videos back at the end of Legion, but then also Battle of Azeroth, where there were lower levels doing more damage and like being able to duel people that are higher eye levels, and that was actually bullshit. So for me, Legion is really an underperforming expansion PvP wise. I feel like PvE, it was fun to have the story, it was fun to go back to the roots of the Burning Legion and such, but PvP wise, if they had removed the templates and they still had vendors, pretty much I would say that Legion would be one of the best PvP expansions. But they dropped the ball on the artifact power, they dropped the ball on, for example, yeah, the the general gearing system, the power system. Sometimes you felt like you were underpowered for some reason. You couldn't really change anything to your class and your character. So for me, it is a C tier. Although I still think the system was alright, but it didn't again work on it. They really dropped it like every expansion that is going to come after Worlds of Draenor. And of course in Dragonflight they will fix it, but that makes it actually a C tier expansion. Let's talk about BFA. BFA is D tier. It's the worst expansion for me. First and foremost, no vendor, but also a bit more pruning as well. Corruption, I didn't like it, that you cannot really target anything from corruption. I also didn't like a lot of things, like for example, I didn't like how the Azeroth armor was. I didn't like a lot of the systems. I didn't like also that sometimes you felt underpowered because you face someone that is lower level. I remember all those Rextroy videos, like scaling, that was terrible. I feel like you should not scale anything in PvP except up, but not towards the best of the best, just towards of a playable state. That's why, for example, if you are eye level 270 and the average level eye level is 250 and you are 220, for me it's not a problem that you go to 250 because it's an MMO. And it's still also PvP, so it's competitive, so you need to have some possibility to fight back. But and also what I would like is the 20 eye level, that it is not a disparity of a 20% power, but I would say like for example a 5% more power. That would be like more fair. But with Dragonflight, I think with the conquest gear and the honor gear, I feel like the dispersion of the actual difference between those gears might just fix the game. So BFA, it's terrible. I feel like a lot of people would say the same. And now it is the most controversial expansion. Season 1, I'm going to repeat. Season 1. I feel the PvP meta and the PvP activity was top notch. I really like that. I feel like the meta, yes, you saw a lot of holy paladins. Yes, you saw a lot of fire mage. By the way, fire mages, you still see them in season 3. You will still see them in season 4. It is basically just a spec defining expansion for them. But they dropped the ball on Torghast. You had to do a lot of Torghast. It was fun in the beginning, but whenever you wanted to alt, it was really terrible. Also, the time gating on Covenants was terrible. Whenever you switch, you had to wait 1 week and then do a quest, and then you can switch the second week. That was also terrible, so you couldn't really theory craft. But you got like vendors back, and that was season 1. Season 2, they made it a bit alt friendly, but in the beginning it was very like terrible. But at the end they like switched it with 9.1.5. It was also a philosophy change for Blizzard, because since then I feel like they made really good decisions. But they dropped the ball in the beginning, and then they fixed it at the end, like always, with the conquest boxes, for example, with the sending like soul ashes, and they kind of fixed a lot of things, but you still had to do a lot of Storgas to get your like your legendaries, but it became also easier to farm Torghast. So now we are in season 3. They are still doing a lot of alt friendly things, but they did time gate double legendary, they time gated the force set, they time gated your gear acquisition for some reason. Alting wasn't really easy at the beginning because you still had needed like a force set, you needed double legendary, you needed to do the campaign quest if you were not revered, and now at the end you can just like send cinders, you can send cosmic flux, you can send conquest boxes. So now it is very alt friendly, but I still feel like the PvP in Shadowlands is very enjoyable because you can still target PvP vendors, PvP items from the vendor. You had a lot of activity in season 1, season 2 it dimmed down, and season 3 it dimmed even more down. So for me it is really a top 3 expansion. I don't know if I would put them behind Cataclysm or in front, but for me it is in front because I played a lot more Shadowlands than Cataclysm. It is also the expansion where I did start a lot of my videos on YouTube, and it is worth it for me to put it in top 3. But I would say they really dropped the ball all over the line. If they really did listen to the community with the covenants, the legendaries, the time gating about covenants, I feel like Shadowlands would have been a contender for like top 1, but it didn't do that. Also, the state of healing is still terrible. Okay, Resto Druids did do a comeback. Holy Paladin is very good in AoE healing, and of course H Priest is still god tier. But a lot of healers are like not feeling towards that level of gameplay. Sometimes whenever you play a resto druid and you play versus a H priest, you just are asking yourself, why am I not a H priest? It would have been a lot easier to win. So yeah, this is my ranked tier list for WoW expansions in PvP. So first, Mist of Pandaria, second, Wrath of the Lich King, Shadowlands is third, Cataclysm is fourth, Walls of Draenor is 5, Burning Crusade is 6, Vanilla is 7 because I love the nostalgia and still love like if they did fresh servers for Classic, I would definitely play it. For example, Legion for me it is 8th, and BFA is for me the 9th expansion. So thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. We will see each other very soon. Bye.